Hello.
Ah. Hello, viewers. This is Bill and Athelfeather from the GODcast podcast, the podcast with the most useless information you didn't know that you needed to know. Welcome, one and all. Athelfeather, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing a lot better than the last episode because on the last one I'd been dealing with a bunch of hay fever problems by taking antihistamines, but I was drinking it as well every day, and I think it made me feel extremely depressed, and so I decided to stop taking the antihistamines, and now I feel much better.
That's excellent.
Still drinking. Yeah.
I didn't know that demigods got hay fever and depression as well, but that's life.
Well, that's probably why storms happen.
That's a good point. Poseidon probably wasn't in the best mood half the time.
Yeah, or I think
Odysseus
that would
was
actually be
fucking him over
Zeus.
left, right, and centre.
Yeah, I mean, the Greek gods certainly have a lot of kind of temper tantrums or whatever. Yeah, but the real question is, does Tian, which is the Chinese word for heaven, which is actually an anthropomorphic deity, get depressed? Today we might find out, because today's topic is the great nation of China. I think what we're going to do is Bill is gonna ask me as someone of Chinese ancestry. I'm gonna educate him on our history, our culture, our traditions, our politics, and our current affairs. I am an expert on this. I have a social science degree, so I might have got a 2-2, but I probably have more qualifications than the audience does, because I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you're a fucking idiot.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to the audience. You're in for a treat because you're going to hear my Chinese person impression. Are you ready? I'm not going to do that because I'm not a total retard. Who's going to put that on
You're
YouTube?
A coward. You're a coward.
Anyway, Fred, let's get started. So someone who we're definitely going to dive into is Mao Zedong, who a lot of people, for some reason, wear T-shirts of. But we're going to go into his habits of hygiene, how he rose to power, and essentially what he did over his life. And how many people he killed.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah. Well, Mao Zedong was a good person, first of all. Let's get that just set down in stone off the bat. He was a good man. He had good intentions. The problem was everyone else. The problem was that there were a lot of corrupt officials that were lying to him about how much stuff had been grown, how much food there would be. He was just going off on what he was being told. He had no idea. And the guy was an insomniac, so he probably was too tired to really venture out into the countryside and see any of the famines or anything. So I'm going to start off with that kind of apologist assessment of Mao Zedong. He was a good man. Yeah. But who was he?
Well, we'll get onto that in a sec. It's funny that you mentioned that he basically received a load of terrible information. It seems like the classic case of people reporting into dictators never, ever want to give them bad news. I've heard the same with Hitler. When D-Day happened, people didn't want to wake him up. And when the Luftwaffe were losing the Battle of Britain, people just kept on lying to him, saying like, yeah, it's going really well.
Yes, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, man. Exactly that. So what was everyone telling Mao back in the day?
Well, it's sort of a case of Chinese whispers, you could say, because I think they were. I think they were just kind of. They were overestimating how much stuff had been produced, and then actually it basically ended up in the situation that the peasants were in the first place before the revolution, where all the crops they were growing were getting shipped out, I guess, to make up for orders. And their surplus just wasn't big enough. So but that was that was a sad thing.
We've started a bit further into sort of him as dictator, or what was his official title? I doubt he was called dictator of China. Was he chairman of the Communist?
Chairman of the Communist Party. Yeah. The technical term they use in China is paramount leader, which basically means like it's not an official title, but it's like whoever is the dominant leader. So there was Mao Zedong, and then there was Deng Xiaoping, there was Jiang Zemin, and now we have Xi Jinping, who's also paramount leader. And actually, Xi Jinping and Mao Zedong share something in common, which I believe none of the other paramount leaders do, which is that they've had their names enshrined into the Constitution of China. So they have become
Really?
part of the actual part of the Chinese state itself, part of the the legal structure of the state, which is
Mm.
very impressive. Yeah, I would like to do that.
You probably have to
With the
kill and
Constitution of
intimidate quite a
Wessex.
lot of people.
I am prepared to do that. Um,
And can we
yeah.
just go back to humble beginnings of
hmm
where he came from, who he was? Was he? I actually I know nothing about his early life. Was he born into a powerful family? Was he some peasant? Where did he come from?
It really is humble origins. He was born into a wealthy peasant family in Hunan, which is kind of a very rural area. He was known to speak with a Hunanese accent, which I guess is a bit like a southern twang, kind of the Chinese equivalent of that. He was known for his earthy humor and his kind of humble ways. He never showered, for example. Um,
Just
yeah, there's
flannel
a
baths.
yeah, no, literally, he'd just get wiped down with a hot towel, and that was his way of washing. Yeah, but yeah, so he was born into this wealthy peasant family. So wealthy by those standards, but still not
Mm,
particularly prosperous. But his father was able to purchase some land during his time. His father was a very stern man, very strict man, who beat him a lot as a child. Wasn't a nice guy. Mao was quite close to his mother, who was a very devout Buddhist.
mm,
But I think she died when he was quite young. So yeah, he grew up in that kind of situation, but he was able to go to school and learn to read and write, study the uh,
was
the
that
classics.
quite rare?
Yeah, I think in that kind of background it would have been. Yeah, I think it's because his
Mm,
father made some like smart choices in investment and stuff, and was able to get some money despite being a peasant. So Mao would have studied, Confucius, the Analects of Confucius, which is kind of their like bit of a religious text, philosophical text. But the literature he liked the most were the old Chinese romances, which is things like The Water
mm,
Margin or Journey to the West, more kind of stories about heroes and people like that.
yeah.
And eventually he was able to get away from home. And he did it. He studied at a bunch of different places. He ended up in. He briefly went to Beijing, I think, which was Peking back then. And
Mm,
he ended up at a university in Changsha, I think. And while he was there, he kind of his politics gravitated towards Western style liberalism. This kind of coincided with Sun Yat sen and the revolution against the Manchu dynasty that had ruled China for a few centuries by then. And they were kind of thrown out. And there was this hope that there would be a new liberal government installed under the Kuomintang. And then what happened essentially was Sun Yat sen died, and then the Kuomintang got basically hijacked by Chiang Kai shek.
mm,
Um, but by the time this kind of stuff was happening, Mao had formed basically a study group because he'd heard about Marxism, and so he joined like a study group, a kind of a society for students and teachers and people, to just to kind of study Western Marxist texts, which were obviously very rare. You had the Russian Revolution around that time as well.
mm.
And they were kind of this little study society morphed into the Communist Party, and they were integrated within the Kuomintang.
Mm.
So
And
they
sorry,
were
who was in charge of China at this point? Was it Chiang Kai Shek, or is this a little bit too early for that?
Kind of. Chiang Kai shek was in charge of the Kuomintang, and they ruled from Nanjing, or Nanking back then.
Yeah.
And but most of the country was being ruled by warlords. China, by at this point in history, was a very poor country. It had been semi-colonized, and it had really fallen behind because they'd had this archaic dynasty ruling them, who were not Han Chinese people. They were Manchu people from the north.
Was it all?
And so,
Was there any similarity to sort of the Russian Tsars and the royal family back then, sort of with all the wealth, and everyone else was some dirt poor peasant?
Yeah, I get. Yeah, yeah. The main thing was that the Manchu dynasty, the Qing dynasty, were basically holding China back from modernization. This is what people like Sun Yat-sen thought. You know, they had a very autocratic, basically a medieval style government, and you know, China was looking at other countries like Japan modernizing and adopting
Mm,
Western institutions, Western technology, and kind of bringing themselves out of poverty, and that wasn't happening in China. There was still
yeah.
very archaic social norms, serfdom, uh, abject
Mm.
poverty in the countryside, especially.
And then,
Yeah,
so I think I've got, I might be, I might have the date. You correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, didn't the Japanese then invaded in 1933 into Manchuria and
yeah.
just absolutely wrecked and ravaged that
I
region of the country, which is a large part of the northeast side of
yeah.
China.
Yeah, so I think they got there in 31, and there was like I think that's when the Marco Polo bridge incident happened, but nothing much
Mm.
really. It didn't happen, but then in 33 it escalated a lot.
Oh,
But
right.
there
Okay.
wasn't an outright war with China yet with the Kuomintang, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Chinese basically they had already suffered from Western imperialism for quite some time at that point.
Mm.
So they understood what was happening when the Japanese arrived. They understood that Japan was basically going to take over the mantle of
Yeah.
what Western countries like Britain had done in the 19th century.
Mm.
They understood that they were being colonized. Yeah, and they lost Manchuria, which is where the Manchu people, the Qing dynasty rulers, came from. They're kind of like they're almost like they're not far from Mongolia, so they're kind of like yeah, they're a bit almost like steppe people. They're very good at horse riding and shooting
Mm.
bows and arrows from the backs of horses and stuff.
Yeah. And
Um,
totally agriculturally focused, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, the whole of China was back then. It was an
Yeah.
agrarian economy. It was
And
very
yeah.
backward economically. Yeah.
And Japan, on the other hand, I know for
Mm,
at the start of the start of the 1900s, started industrializing, started becoming a militarized nation. At the sort of, I think in the sort of early 1910s, they defeated Russia in an enormous naval battle and humiliated them. And by 1930, they were a really formidable force with a very, very professional army that absolutely ravaged China and just destroyed
mm.
the Chinese army at the time, which had superior numbers, but just basically, like you said, sort of farmers, peasants, mountain men
Yeah,
who weren't
yeah.
very good at fighting at all. And the Japanese saw them as inferior, as they did with every nation that they traveled to in the sort of in the earlier half of the 1900s, but
Mm,
absolutely slaughtered them. There's examples of that sort of across. Well, the whole of Southeast Asia and China, actually, but in
yeah,
particular examples like the Nanking massacre and just them ravaging through the whole of Manchuria, just killing every single man,
yeah.
woman, and child on the way through.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, Nanjing was obviously like was the most infamous one, and it was
Mm.
absolutely brutal.
Just
It's like
beheading and
mind blowing. Yeah, like but carrying
beheading and
babies around
raping
on
everyone.
bayonets. Yeah, yeah,
How many? Yeah, how many
just
people are we talking here?
a shit ton. I don't know the
I'm just
numbers,
gonna
but yeah.
Joe Rogan Jamie this. Oh,
What are
come
we
on, just give me
looking
the
at?
figure. We're looking at far exceeded 100,000 people in one city.
Yeah,
So around
and this is
150,000 people
yeah, and this wouldn't be
just
like a
beheaded and
very
bayoneted.
densely. Yeah, this wouldn't be like you know our idea of a 21st century Western city. This would have been like probably I don't know what the Nanjing population was, but it probably wasn't huge. So that is an insane
Mm.
number of people, and it happened in a short period of time. Yeah, the Japanese obviously were trying to colonize China. They were politically dysfunctioning because their military had just kind of hijacked their state,
Yeah.
and were just making all the political decisions. And yeah, so but during that time, well, in the run up to that, Chiang Kai shek's Kuomintang had basically started to see the Communist Party, which was part of the Kuomintang at that time, as a bit of a threat. And so he started instituting these purges against them, one after the other. and it got very complicated, and I don't really know what happened, but a ton of the communists got killed,
You're the
and it
expert,
was
Fred.
during
Don't
this
say that.
period, and it was during this period that Mao Zedong
I don't
kind
know.
of this is what I heard in a dream last night. Yeah, no, so yeah, Mao Zedong kind of rose to the ranks of the party. They attempted to establish a Soviet in Jiangxi, which is still in, I guess, the south of China in like mountains. But then these kind of massacres kept coming against them until eventually the communists decided to break out and then march all the way up into the northwest of China. And that was called the Long March. And Mao
Mm,
basically came to the forefront of the party in that kind of period. He led a lot of the people in the Communist Party probably felt like, oh, it's all over now, we're done. You know, the Kuomintang have won. Chiang Kai-shek will rule over us as this kind of fascist tyrant. But they managed to traverse all the way. I mean, an insane distance.
mm,
And it must have been really brutal, getting
yeah.
food and stuff along the way. And a lot of people died along the march, and they were probably getting harassed by the White Army, the Kuomintang forces along
Yeah.
the way. But eventually, they got to the northwest and were able to establish this new kind of Soviet territory. They were supported by the Soviet Union, which was a fairly young country at the time.
Mm,
And Mao started to organize, basically, and this is how he was able to achieve what he went on to achieve, which was that he actually ended up completely contradicting Marxist dogma, um, in one fundamental point, which is that in classical Marxist theory, the revolution against capitalism must necessarily be waged by the proletariat, the industrial working class that has been created by capitalism. But obviously, in China at the time, they weren't really a capitalist economy. So
mm,
there wasn't much of a proletariat to rely on. And Mao saw an opportunity, and this is partly tied to his peasant background. He realized that the peasants could be the vanguard, the leaders of the revolution. And at
mm,
first, that wasn't very popular within kind of the upper echelons of the party, but it proved to be a very effective approach. They won over the peasants because they said, "Look, we're going to redistribute the land. We'll, get rid of the landlords. They won't keep bullying you and starving you and selling all the stuff that you've grown." And yeah, so there was this. They gathered up this very kind of optimistic energy of like, we're going to change this. This is communism, but it's communism in a Chinese style that's different
yeah.
from like the European analysis that Marx produced. And that completely won over large swathes of the population. Whereas the Kuomintang and Chiang Kai-shek were trying to cozy up to the landlord class, to a large
Mm,
extent. This is at least how the communists saw it,
yeah.
and and maintain that kind of very very archaic, brutal kind of culture that had existed before.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was this war, and then there was a civil war, and then the Japanese invasion escalated, and Mao began to push for an end to hostilities with the Kuomintang. Bear in mind, this is
Mm,
after his wife had just been beheaded by a warlord on behalf of the Kuomintang. So it shows you how
Christ.
personal this shit was. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really personal.
It's also important to
Um,
mention that the Kuomintang were being supported by the Allies. So in the 40s, in sort of 1943, 4, and 5, General George Marshall, who was the chief of staff in America, America was firmly on the side of Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang. But in Burma, which was where the Americans, the British, and the Chinese were fighting the Japanese, there was the airlift over the hump. So thousands and thousands of tons worth of Allied equipment, planes, material, guns, ammunition were going over the hump, which is on the border. It's sort of like the edge of the Himalayas, so very mountainous region above the border of Burma, and supporting Chiang with the equipment needed for him to fight Mao, basically. But important to mention the amount of support that they were getting. But in the end, it was totally pointless from the Allies' perspective because Chiang wasn't in office for much longer after the war.
yeah, and let's not forget that the Chinese communists were being bankrolled by the Soviets, and were getting a lot of support from them. So that was really an extension of the Cold War. But they were in the 30s, they were able to kind of set their differences aside and end hostilities, organize a ceasefire between each other, and then join forces to fight off the Japanese. Fun fact, actually, obviously the country that lost the most casualties in World War II was the Soviet Union. They lost a huge amount of casualties, but not that far behind them was China, was the country that suffered the second most casualties. And that's kind of weird because in the UK, I don't remember, I definitely studied World War II at school, but I don't remember hearing anything about China, really, beyond the fact that they were fighting the Japanese. But the extent of it and the level of sacrifice that was made by the Chinese in that war is very underestimated in the West, which is part of a broader problem, which is that we're not taught much about China at all, which is crazy to me, because it's a massive country with a huge amount of political power, a very powerful economy, and a strong military these days as well. And we're just not taught anything about it at all.
No, we just go on Amazon and buy pointless crap made out of plastic, which is shipped from that region of the world, which we know nothing about.
And they make everything we own. Which is, I mean, I'm wearing a T-shirt that says Hard Rock Cafe Beijing on it right now. So, you know, I recognize the culture.
And I'm just looking at some stuff on my desk. What have I got here?
Let's just count all the Chinese.
Yeah, it's a clipper lighter made in Flanagan. I have no idea. It doesn't say where it is. Probably made in China. It's a safe bet.
You couldn't read it because it was written in Mandarin.
I've got a Yamaha piano, well, a keyboard.
That's Japanese.
That's so.
You're like Uncle Cotton in King.
But yeah, no. But actually, I mean, we know nothing about China. I mean, we've had to do a lot of research, and well, I've done absolutely none because I was busy today. Aren't you lucky, viewers? Anyway, but Fred, luckily, is quite up to date with these kind of things, so I'm taking the interviewer role of this one. But yeah, we literally know nothing about China. Most people won't know who Mao Zedong. Sorry, Mao Zedong. Yeah, most people won't know who he is. For some reason, I said Mao Zedong, but in my head, Xi Jinping popped up. But no one knows who the president of China is, you know, unless they're actually sort of versed in it or do a bit of research. But we're just not taught about it. And China has clear goals to become the world's number one superpower now. And the question is, will they? Because it's, you know, looking pretty possible. Their military has gone from pretty crap, just like, you know, numbers over quality. But they've now got a gigantic navy, which is quite a serious. You know, I think it's the second largest navy in the world. And they are a force to be reckoned with, and they want to be the world's superpower by the end of this century, for sure. Maybe even sooner than that, maybe halfway through this century.
Oh, I welcome that.
Really?
Yeah, I went to a Chinese restaurant last night. It was really good.
We need more of this.
I want as much MSG in my food as I can possibly get.
Have you seen those super farms in skyscrapers?
No.
I saw this mental video. Basically, like, it's a farm, but it's in the center of a city. It can house 20,000 pigs, which everything is automated. So they have, like, I mean, the conditions look horrendous. It's just like one of those really horrible sort of battery farms in the UK or the US, but literally with 40 stories, like a skyscraper farm. Everything is automated, like feeding,
sort
and
of a Lao guy for pigs. That's the Chinese word for concentration camp.
Christ,
a Lao guy. Yeah, those are.
So why?
各位播客的听众们，大家好。由于违反了中华人民共和国法律，本期节目的此部分内容已被删除。虽然保障国民的自由是我们的首要任务，但这一目标必须与维护国家稳定与和平的必要性相平衡。请您继续收听本期节目的剩余部分，并保持庄重的心态。
You gotta face the music like Mao Zedong faced the Kuomintang after his wife got beheaded.
Look,
and massacre.
As every great dictator knows, You've got to do evil things first to create utopia. The most dangerous people in the world are not evil people. They're people, they are not evil in their own heads. The most dangerous people in the world and in history are people who think they're doing a good thing. They just have to make a sacrifice in between utopia and where they are before they get there.
And the problem is everyone bitches and complains and says, oh, you're doing the wrong thing. And then you never get to the utopia because there's always people, as soon as Mao died, Deng Xiaoping came along and opened up China, turned it into a capitalist hellhole.
Well, it's often the journey to a vision that actually keeps people in check or keeps people motivated. Like when you actually reach a state of utopia or something like that, the dictator in command, whoever it is, whether it be Hitler or Mao, goes, "Oh shit, everyone's kind of got there. I need to keep them working. I need to keep them on the path to this thing in order to keep them motivated and with a clear goal in sight. Because once you stop, things fall apart."
Mao was a really good example of that.
Really?
Yeah, because once he'd defeated the Kuomintang and he'd established the People's Republic of China, and then he pursued this economic policy, the Great Leap Forward, which failed and led to mass starvation.
The Little Red Book.
Yeah. Well, this is where the Little
again?
Red Book comes in. Yeah, quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong, I think, was the official name. But the Red Book didn't exist yet. The Red Book came about directly because of what I'm about to explain.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that like, wait, what was it called? The quotations from Mao Zedong?
Yeah, I think that's what it was called, yeah.
I feel like in every single dad's downstairs bathroom, there's like a little quote book of like the wit and wisdom of Winston Churchill. Is that a kind of downstairs loo Chinese version of the wit and wisdom of Winston Churchill?
It's a bit more like a Bible, I guess. It was like they'd carry it around and wave it and stuff. But yeah, this all happened because Mao was starting to get sidelined within the party by other party members. And at the same time, he saw in the post-Stalin years, he saw the Soviet leadership kind of not be able to maintain power as effectively as Stalin had. And Mao realized that the reason why that happened in the Soviet Union, the thing he wanted to avoid, was that they didn't have a cult of personality. So he started this new kind of policy or movement called the Cultural Revolution. And so this Little Red Book got printed out in millions and millions of copies. He swam the Yellow River and got photographed doing it. And it's quite funny. There were these photos of this. He was quite old at this point, of this older guy kind of slowly swimming across the river. And then they basically indoctrinated a ton of all the young people basically. And they said, look, the revolution isn't over yet. We haven't actually got there yet. We've got to keep going. And we've got to destroy all the old culture. So there are lots of like statues being destroyed, and we've got to root out all the reactionary enemies within. The enemy within, the kind of crypto bourgeoisie who are hiding in our midst. And so people would get their teachers at university. They put dunce hats on them, and like parade them out and berate them. People got killed. Yeah, you had all these young people in these units called Red Guards, and they were like young kind of radicalized people who were very, very loyal to Mao Zedong, and the result was like political chaos, and it's something that's scarred the current leadership of China. Xi Jinping, for example, his father was basically exiled to like the countryside during the Cultural Revolution and like lost his job. Xi Jinping had to work on a farm as a young man, despite coming from quite a fairly prestigious background. And so China has this. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, I was looking at photos of him swimming now, and the guy has a lot of topless pics. Mao Zedong was in sort of Chinese Baywatch.
He was a bit of a sex symbol. There were a lot of women that loved him. He was he's
kind of like a saggy, toothless, balding old Chinese guy.
Yeah.
But who apparently didn't wash, so this dip into the Yellow River was his first wash in a while.
Yeah, well, actually, his physician, his personal doctor, his personal physician said to him, you need to start washing because your penis is filthy, and he said
Mao
that to
Zedong
him,
and his filthy knob.
and Mao Zedong's response was, "I clean my penis inside the bodies of women."
Oh, God, those poor
That was
women.
his that was his response. Oh no, they loved it. You know, I mean, God, I wish I could have been one of those women. And spent a night with the chairman. Some other funny quotes. He was his doctor also told him to start brushing his teeth, and Mao Zedong
Never.
responded. Well, Mao Zedong's response was, "Does a tiger brush its teeth?"
Yes, the tiger-like man, the predator that he was.
Yeah. What's another one? I'm trying to think. Oh, his doctor told him to stop smoking because he chain smoked a lot of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And Mao Zedong said, "But don't you think that smoking is an exercise in deep breathing?"
I can see how you'd come to that conclusion if you knew nothing about. Well, if you had Mao Zedong's level of health knowledge. I love it. I went to this Chinese medicine place in an airport once. It was in Delhi airport, and I came across this like tiger claw potion. I think it was called like Sharp Claw Tiger, and it literally solved every single ailment a human could get, particularly men, because it was like you struggling to get a boner, eat tiger claw.
Yeah, an alternative Chinese medicine is something that was basically invented during Mao's reign. That was one of the policies because they had to get doctors out to the countryside and like reform their healthcare system, and the only way they could kind of persuade people about it, because the peasants weren't very trusting of like Western medicine, I guess, was to come up with like basically a fake system of medicine. That has resulted in the extinction of several species of animals throughout the world.
Got a dirty penis? You know, eat tiger claw.
Have more sex with teenage girls. That's how you clean it. You clean
Going
it
bald?
Inside them.
Eat tiger claw.
So Mao was a terrible patient and a doctor's worst nightmare.
How did he die?
He had a bunch of heart attacks when he was like in his early 80s. He had a shit ton. Yeah, he lived quite long. I think he was like 81 or 82 when he died in 1976. But yeah, he just had a bunch of heart attacks in like a few months and then just kind of died. And then there was all this kind of shuffling around, and like his wife, I think, ended up in prison because she was leading the Gang of Four, who were a group of
another wife. Wasn't the first one beheaded?
He had a bunch of wives. His first wife was actually an arranged marriage. He never got laid with her. It was never consummated. Because he didn't support. Yeah, because he was a feminist and he didn't support forced marriages. Yeah, he was also known to sexually harass male members of staff. So he was also a bicon.
It's just banter,
as they
mate.
might say.
Not gay.
It's bi. It's because he likes to wash his penis inside women as well. So
no homo.
He's a bicon. Yeah.
A bicon.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered quite a lot in this, and but we've missed out a hell of a lot as well. We haven't done the most linear sort of biographical podcast on his life, but at the same time, we've done a pretty good exploration. Like I said in the beginning, the most useless stuff you didn't know you needed to know. Yeah, like Mao Zedong's dirty knob.
Yeah, something to think about.
All the things that tiger claws can heal.
Yeah, I feel like writing a haiku about Mao Zedong's dick.
Nice.
He wrote a lot of poetry.
We should start the next episode with that.
Yeah. He wrote...
Add insult to injury.
He was a poet.
Write a Japanese poem about a man who hated the Japanese.
He actually liked them. He once he had, in the 50s and 60s or whatever, the Japanese envoys would come to visit, for diplomatic reasons. And he was quoted saying to them, "If it wasn't for you guys, I would have never got into power. So I'm actually really grateful for all the crimes you committed." That was his approach. This gives you an idea of how someone who leans more towards the Marxist tradition views history very differently. Because they view history as a dialectical process, where bad things ultimately lead to good things. The only way you can resolve a problem is by the two sides of the problem kind of smashing against each other until eventually a third thing comes and resolves that problem, which goes all the way back to the philosopher Hegel. It's dialectics. It's a very different way of thinking. It's like a completely different view of science. It's like it's just a completely different world.
I can kind of understand the mindset of that, though. When things end well or things are going well, but they were previously going badly, you can sort of say, was it fate that led me from bad to good, or I am in this position only because certain bad things happen? I can kind of get that.
Yeah, it actually comes from the Christian tradition. Yeah, it comes from the tradition of Christian mysticism. The guy who Hegel got the dialectical idea from was a German mystic in the 17th century called Jakob Böhme, who wrote a book basically arguing that the fall of man, when Adam and Eve get kicked out of the Garden of Eden and they have to live a hard life, was necessary in order for God to develop. So it's this strange kind of mystical approach to Christianity where you view history as not a constant upward progression, which is what's called the Whig view of history, which is like, kind of British liberal attitude. That instead it's this dialectical view of history as things kind of as an idea and then the negation of that idea and those two ideas battling it out, and the result being another idea that's more abstract or less abstract perhaps, that can resolve those ideas. So it's a very different attitude to life. But I guess if you live through the kind of nightmarish times that someone like Mao did, it's probably something that can get you through those times. Whereas like the British Whiggish view of history is something that British rich Englishmen came up with in the 18th century when they were feeling on top of the world, and they were like, oh yeah, history is just one thing after another and it just gets better each time.
Bit of jingoism.
And we just get richer. Yeah. We just get richer. Things will just keep going upwards and we'll get more and more freedom. And what that actually means is I, a rich Englishman, will get to profit more off of the slave trade that we're running across the Atlantic. That was actually what was going on, but that was their kind of view. That was their idea of freedom.
I just sort of have this like Flashman styled mindset of whenever thinking about these things. Have you ever seen everything's just sort of, oh, it'll be fine. What do you mean they're uprising again? Smack them down, for God. What do you mean they're not taking opium? Send the Navy in.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, China, one thing Mao did do was he successfully dealt with China's drug problem, because they had a terrible problem with opium all the way into the 20th century. And they actually ended it. And it's the only example I know of a government successfully eradicating a drug addiction. And the way they did that was by but they forced all the addicts into rehab, and then they killed all the peddlers. And so there you go, UK government. Why don't
the
you
gangs?
Do that? Yeah. Have you heard about Corbyn's new party being called Your Party?
I thought it was called Jezbollah.
He's called it Your Party, which is a really confusing name. Because if like a Tory MP asks me, who am I going to vote for? And I say, Your Party, they're going to go away thinking I'm voting for the Tories. So why would you call it that?
I saw him talk about it with Owen Jones on a park bench somewhere in Hyde Park or London, a park in London. And I wasn't that convinced, to be honest. I think the thing with politicians, though, is that once you get a chance, particularly in America, but it's also true in Britain, is that when people give you a second chance in business, and they give you a second chance at friendship or personal stuff, they give you a second chance to win an event, but people don't really forgive you in politics. If you run in politics once and you get thrashed like Jeremy Corbyn did in 2019, people don't really give you a second chance. Like obviously a bunch of sort of 17-year-old lefty communists who are at Leeds University or wherever, not singling out Leeds for any particular reason, but just some really woke uni, they're probably going to be the only people that vote for him.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know who will vote for him, but do you know who did get a second chance in politics? Was Donald Trump.
That is
I might just refute your theory.
True, but he won the first time, so I'd say he's an exception to the rule because he did win the first time.
Yeah.
I
wish we could have him on.
Yeah. Mate, Donald's coming on. He's heard about us. I think we've shot up to 11 views. Our first guest.
Yeah. He's just going to come in here and roast us.
I just love his mannerisms. Him getting on the plane to Air Force One, talking about just shit talking Sadiq Khan, basically going like, and people liked it when I was talking about your mayor. Yep, terrible guy, awful guy, stupid guy. just going on.
He's just great at it.
So
I would love to have him on. Just see him roast you. That would be great.
Yeah, me trying to get
faggot Bill. That's what they're calling him.
Loser Bill doesn't have any
gay. He's so gay. It's very sad. Very clever people are saying that. Some of them are my friends.
Donald, can we focus on the issues? Don't talk to me like that. You're a nasty person. Just
You're
like the
gay
entire
as well.
Audience. Your country's gay.
It kind of is, I guess. If he said that, I'd be like, oh yeah.
What I don't understand is his actually, I think this is my theory about why. What I was going to say is I don't understand his relationship with Starmer, but my theory is I think he loves the UK. His mother was Scottish.
It's a gay relationship. You might not like it. Me and Keir, we make love every night. I kick Melania out of the bedroom. I say, Keir, come over here.
But I think it's because he loves the UK. I think he loves the royal family. I think he's got a lot of friends, a lot of British friends who from his business days in politics, whatever. But I think he loves British culture. Nobody does it like the British, as he said when visiting the Queen.
I think this is like cope you're saying right now. I think this is I think a lot of British people have this idealized image of like the special relationship and everything, but I bet Trump doesn't really care about any country or anything. I feel like he just doesn't care about anything.
I think he likes British culture, and I think he likes Britain as a country in terms of sort of culture, people he knows, friends, royal family. The Americans love the royals, but I reckon behind closed doors, he just thinks Keir Starmer is the biggest wet wipe on the entire planet.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of different because Trump can do executive orders and stuff.
Yeah.
Trump can do executive orders and stuff. Being president of the US gives you so much power, whereas like someone like Keir Starmer probably can't really do anything in power. Like I honestly, this is why I don't vote, because firstly I don't believe in democracy. Secondly, I know that whoever gets elected, like they're just not going to be able to do anything. They just can't get anything done. It's just pointless. So just accept it and move on. I last election, was the first time I ever voted. I sport my ballot. I wrote a quote from the Bible on it, and I will do that again. I will do that every 4 years. Render unto Caesar those things that are Caesar's, and unto God those things that are God's.
Nice. Well, that's good. Yeah. I always think whenever I'm on a date with a left-wing girl, because I am politically sort of leaning slightly more to the right. But anyway, whenever I'm on a date with a girl...
That's an understatement. You just have the politics of a boomer.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm, I'd say I'm very culturally liberal, but then fiscally right-wing. So, but what I would say is that whenever I'm on a date with a girl who I know is a massive lefty, you know, you always want to leave politics out of it. But I heard a really, really good piece of advice, which was just never say who you're voting for or what your opinions are. Just say these words. We need revolution. That's just all you need to say. Just leave it.
You're thinking more like American Revolution. That's more your vibe. Like no taxation without representation.
Because then you can just leave her to basically figure out the rest, which is whatever she thinks you're bashing, like you're sort of banging on about.
I don't know if I'm left wing or right wing anymore. My views have got very, very peculiar.
The more I delve into it, the more the political compass is just total bullshit.
Oh yeah.
People will just say people will say, depending on their political leanings, will say you are the opposite of me in order to bash you over the head with it, whatever it is.
Whereas it's all partisanship. It's
so ridiculous how issues like immigration have gone from being totally sort of neither left or right to suddenly it's totally right wing. And then issues such as unions and workers and people getting better looked after, sort of the working class getting completely forgotten about. That's almost become a right-wing issue.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are basically saying, like, look, we need to look after the working class in whatever country you're from, whether it's the US, America, or wherever else. Sorry, UK or America or wherever else. It's like if you start talking about looking after the working class, but that involves talking about immigration or that involves talking about welfare, suddenly the whole thing gets completely scrambled. And people have like entirely forgotten about where the political leanings lie. And that's, I think, because of the woke movement.
Yeah, well, no, it is. It's because the left wing basically got defanged after the Occupy Wall Street thing. They turned it from a movement about class-based politics into a movement about kind of vague cultural issues, which I think was mostly done by the Democrat Party in the US because it meant that they could appear to be a left-wing party while still actually getting big donations from banks or whatever. You know, this is like Hillary Clinton style politics.
Yeah,
I think that's probably where it all went wrong.
Yeah, it's funny because like when wokeism is very much a cult, and I mean that in the sense that you can't have any other differing opinions, and you can't leave it without being excommunicated, and you can't join it and you can't criticize it while you're in it. Otherwise, you will be excommunicated.
But I think it's kind of dead now.
I think it's dying. It's great.
The woke thing is dead, but I think that what we're going to see now is kind of a right-wing version of it, which is like even lamer.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about that as well.
Yeah, like right-wing identity politics, which is just like
the victim mentality
what we had in the 80s
as well. Yeah.
I think that's going to be the next irritating thing, and that will lead to an actual left-wing movement emerging again because they'll no longer be associated with that kind of stuff, and they'll be associated more with that kind of more materialist, class-based politics. So I think that might backfire on the right wing, and I think because people have seen it go one way before, people will kind of will recognize it a bit more quickly when it comes from the other way, possibly.
Yeah,
I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what my beliefs are. You know, I don't want to.
We're figuring it out on.
I don't want to narrow myself down. I don't like labels. You know, I don't like labels. But if I had to, you know, I wouldn't want to be too specific. But I guess I would say I'm a geoistic, non-democratic market socialist.
You're gonna have to break that down in another episode.
Yeah. I was just trying to make a joke about labels.
I never know anymore.
Yeah, no.
But just to jump back quickly into when the political compass got scrambled, it was when basically people from the woke activists sort of absolute batshit crazy lobby started basically saying that children should be operated on, and you know, with the tropes of sort of climate lunacy and transgenderism in particular. A lot of people on what they would consider as the same team, so the left side of politics, suddenly split within themselves, going, guys, I think we're on the same team. You know, I'm a socialist too, but I don't think you should operate on kids. And I don't think you should basically shut down the entire energy system of the UK. And then they basically started infighting. And the people who were saying, I'm not sure I'm on board with that, whether they're socialist lefties or old school lefties, basically suddenly got excommunicated, thrown out of the group. Like J.K. Rowling is the perfect example because I'd say she's pretty left-wing. She's probably a bit more on the socialist side of things, but suddenly completely excommunicated. And because of the controversy, she's almost considered right-wing, bizarrely.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem was she posted a photo of herself with like a glass of whiskey smoking a cigar, which is like very right-wing coded. And I think at that moment, there's something about like anti-woke boomer kind of media people. They love like taking a photo where they're smoking a cigar. I don't know what that is. It's like
almost a victory kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a smug kind of thing. It's like those boomer memes where it will be, you know, like just the classic like text and a photo, but the photo will be like a cowboy and the quote will say something about like not understanding pronouns or whatever.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, you're pansexual. I don't fuck pans. some dumb shit like that. Which really and really, it's just a kind of it's just a smug kind of thing. I guess it's to show like it's like when we were teens and you know you had like Ben Shapiro owning you know, like 18-year-old undergraduate students, you know.
A whiny student with blue hair. There's an element of that which is very sort of satisfying, and it brings in a lot of Schadenfreude. sort of pleasure from seeing someone else fail. But at the
Yeah.
same time, like, at least he went on to go and interview other people and actually debate his topics with people who had a decent argument against him. Rather than just rather than just troll students who didn't really know what their own opinions were by that point.
Yeah. I mean, he's just such an irritating sounding guy. I think his voice is the main problem. It's not as bad as like Jordan Peterson's voice, which is just unbearable. It's so annoying.
I really liked Jordan Peterson. I think, when was it that I read his book? Maybe like 2020, or when I was at uni, because I was annoyed with people just calling me evil for basically being a white man. I got very bored with that narrative, so then read 12
Who was telling you that?
It was just the general media narrative, and also being
the general media narrative that you got from right-wing media that was saying all these people are calling you evil. It's a psyop.
But just culturally as a thing, as a white man, I feel.
Yeah. Well, the number one rule for life is cry in every fucking public appearance you make. That's I saw a video where he was just talking about how he went to a bar. He went to a bar with his wife, and there was like a bluegrass band playing, and they were really good. And he just starts crying. Yeah. It's like, you're a terrible therapist. You shouldn't be giving anyone advice.
He does have a lot of issues. He was on Xanax, not Xanax, Valium for a long time and couldn't kick that, as well as I think his wife was very ill, and so was his daughter at the same time. So he had a lot of shit going on. But the thing that really, like, I really enjoyed.
He didn't manage it very well, did he?
No, but I really enjoyed his book. And I used to, when he started, like the interview with Kathy Newman, I thought that was great. That was really fun to watch. But then he went on. Have you seen the Jubilee YouTube channel where they get one guy to debate 12 people? Funny. I just went, what the hell are you doing, man? Because like he goes on basically debating. I'm going to get the title up actually. Debating whether God exists.
It's
or not.
like he says like belief. If you believe something, you die for it. And then the student or whatever like raises a pen. Is like, do you believe this pen exists? And then Jordan Peterson's like, yes. And he's like,
what do you mean by believe?
And he's like, but you wouldn't die for this pen, right? And then he's like, he says something like, "Don't push your luck, man."
You're being a smartass. Like, why would you go on a thing which is titled Jordan Peterson debates 20 atheists, and he still won't tell anyone if he believes in God or not?
Yeah, because it's a coping mechanism he has, for bad shit he's been through.
It's almost like, but he goes on. It's like, so like atheist goes up to him and goes, "Do you believe in God? That's none of your business." Like,
yeah.
The hell are you here?
Yeah.
And you're going to argue the case for his existence.
Yeah. And you're not a theologian. You're a psychologist. So like, it's not even his area of specialty or whatever. He's I can't stand that guy.
The guy asks a perfectly legitimate question. He goes, "Do you believe in God?" And he goes, "Define believe. Do you believe in his existence?" I don't know what you mean by, and he just like, I think he then starts saying it's a circular definition, which it's not when he's asking him. But the logic behind why he even accepted to do that slightly baffles me, but it wasn't a good way.
I think he's just cracked out. I think, he's probably, he's the genesis of like the right wing woke thing you're seeing. Because,
I'm not sure he is actually.
Because like the whole thing about the right wing in like the 2010s was they were like the sensible, they presented themselves as being like the people who weren't crazy. They would go into these debates saying like, logic and facts, and like, common sense. But now it's kind of flipping, and he's having to defend his belief in like in God or whatever, which isn't an inherently insane thing to believe in. But like the whole of the Bible and everything, and like he has to do these kind of mental gymnastics to justify it. It's like, well, no, I don't believe that the Bible is a literal, historical document of what happened, but at the same time, it's symbolic and all this stuff. And it's the same kind of mental gymnastics that people like him were supposedly, against like 10 years ago and were like refuting in these arguments. And it's basically just, these people just do whatever their they're paid to do. It's their job. He's got so rich off this. He was a fairly unknown lecturer. He published like one book in the 90s that no one read.
Got cancelled. He got cancelled.
I think he refused to comply with some kind of I don't know, some kind of inclusivity regulation, something to do with language
that's right,
being placed. And I think he ended up in like one of the high courts in Canada or whatever. And that went viral. And he'd already been posting videos about all that bullshit like Nietzsche and all that kind of stuff on his YouTube channel, and that kind of blew up. And then all these guys who like jack off too much were like, oh wow, this guy's gonna save my life. It's like, yeah, but he doesn't know. He doesn't got good advice.
Well, the reason I liked him, particularly when I first started researching him and reading his book and stuff like that, was I just think the message of, if you're a young man struggling in life to find motivation or a girlfriend or a job or any sort of purpose in life, he was very good at providing advice and encouraging men to basically find purpose. But then he suddenly went all off on the sort of the God side of thing, the religion, and making a lot of word soup, which I didn't really understand.
Wearing those mental suits that are like multicolored,
which is like the one which is made out of it's red and blue. I think it looks terrible.
Yeah, I think it's some kind of symbolism about like heaven and hell or something.
One's made of goat hair, one's made of lamb hair.
It's gone to his head. Yeah, it's completely gone to his head. He's like completely lost it. He's got it's like Russell Brand. He's got some weird like Jesus complex going on. Where he thinks that he is, because imagine having that much praise heaped on you, and suddenly becoming this celebrity and this icon. People look up to you, and like people treat you as if you're a respected academic, even though you're like a middling, psychology professor or whatever. I think the thing that sealed his fate was when he did the debate with Slavoj Žižek, and over like it was about like Marxism, and he showed up and was like, I did some research. I read the Communist Manifesto, which is like a tiny book.
You were talking about Russell Brand debating Slavoj Žižek.
Oh no!
I was like, that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. No, Jordan Peterson. But like his research was just reading the Communist Manifesto, which is like probably the smallest book Marx wrote. It's like it's like a pamphlet. It's not even a book.
I've got it.
Yeah,
I didn't manage to. I bought it to try and understand it. I read a couple of paragraphs and I really didn't get it. But that was when I was sort of 17, 18. Couldn't really wrap my head. Yeah, I think I should.
It's pretty interesting as a book. But yeah, it's like it was something Marx wrote to like agitate people into political action. It's not like his actual theory or anything. And he hadn't. It doesn't seem that he'd really read any of Slavoj Žižek's writings. And he was like, "Why? How are you an academic when you like you can't read?" It's like such a flaw, So he just ended up looking kind of dumb, I guess. But that whole debate was a cringe thing in itself, because you've got like two academics having a debate and they're like getting applause between each sentence and shit. It's just so undignified.
I think. Sorry, just when the applause thing, when you just applause, you barely even listen to what the person said. If you're the audience during a debate, like Question Time is the perfect example, where just someone says something fucking lame, and everyone just goes, "Yeah, they're on my pause for clapping."
Did you ever see the Harry Enfield?
I know, that is the best sketch. That is so good. Just the bank is the bonuses. The bank is the bonuses.
You sound like Keir Starmer. It was quite a good Keir Starmer impression.
Ed Siliband.
Yeah, Ed Millipede. Yeah. And Russell Brand's on it. Yeah,
he was on Question. He was on Question Time with Nigel Farage once, and like Russell Brand.
And he called him a pound shock Enoch Powell. It's quite funny.
Russell Brand is all charisma, and I think in terms of a debate, he'd sort of basically get crushed by most people. From what I've heard of people who've met him and know him, like he's incredibly likable and charismatic when you meet him in person, but doesn't actually know anything. He's just all charisma. So, for example, like you watch him versus Nigel Farage, he doesn't actually say anything except basically saying Nigel Farage is correct, but has like 0 points whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then, once he's finished his point, there's the inevitable clapping after that as well.
Why are people like him invited to Question Time? It's like, it's like inviting a podcaster like me on.
It's like
why
inviting
would?
us
Could
on
you
the Question
imagine if
Time.
I was that? Yeah. Could you imagine if I was just sat there? Like, what?
Fiona Bruce, not that we turn it down, but we would just piss about on stage, I think.
Yeah,
they do invite YouTubers though.
I know, but it's
like they had
why?
a guy called Tommy in it. Yeah, I know.
Oh, I think I've seen that guy.
Yeah.
I don't watch TV. I haven't watched TV in years. I'm never going to. I hate it. I'm definitely not paying a license fee after what happened with Jimmy Savile. I'm not giving the BBC any of my fucking money.
I've never paid tax since. Cut that out. Have you seen that? Have you seen that Mitchell and Webb sketch with the snooker players?
No.
Oh, it's too good.
Mitchell and Webb.
Anyway, I'm sure. Shit. Yeah, they are great. I'm sure you can. I'm sure our audience can type it in and find it out. But
let's not just start quoting entire scenes that.
That's a bit of a cheap one. Anyway, Fred, we've reached the hour mark, and I think we've covered enough about China and current affairs, and I think our audience is more informed with pointless shit that they probably don't need to know about. But as they will learn themselves, it is the most important shit to know pointless facts.
Yeah, I mean, I want to infect their minds like the woke mind virus has infected so many people's minds. I really want to get into their head, like some kind of tapeworm that shouldn't be there.
Do you reckon there's there have been some fairly large movements which just started out as a joke, and then the hosts or the authors or the journalists, whoever's pushing it, suddenly goes like, guys, I am joking.
I think the National Socialist Party of Germany must have started off as a joke. I have an idea for a film. I have an idea for a screenplay for a film called Accidents Happen. And it's basically, the film is like just portraying Hitler as a guy who accidentally did everything that he did. And like every time he issues a command, he's saying something, and then they mishear what he's saying, and they think he's saying like invade Poland, but actually he was saying something completely different. And there's a scene where he's like says like something, and they're like,
"What's going on around him?"
Yeah, he says something, and then they mishear him. They're like, "Oh, okay, Mein Führer, invade Poland. We'll get onto that right now." And they will leave, and he's like, "No, stop!" And then it just cuts to like tanks rolling.
You should overdub one of his speeches where he's doing a lot of fist pounding and shouting and arm waving, just with like, guys, stop! What are you doing?
I didn't say that.
I was going to briefly mention it earlier, but I remember I saw a clip of Al Murray, the pub landlord.
Yeah.
I saw a clip of him where basically talking about how some people didn't know that he was playing a satirical character and going like, so when are you going to run in politics? When are you going to run for PM? It's like, guys, I'm not that in real life. The pub landlord is a character.
Oh man, I hope that happens.
Oh right, when are you running?
I hope that happens with me in a religion starts. Just blossoms out of this.
It is the Messiah.
Oh yeah, that's literally the plot to The Life of Brian,
yeah. Right, well, as I was saying briefly earlier before I got distracted again, we've been going for an hour, 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Thank you very much for sitting in for the second episode of GODcast, and we look forward to seeing you or not seeing you. In fact, we don't really care about you. We look forward to having our next conversation about some other random topic, but until then, adios.
Yeah, look after yourselves, guys. Stay safe. Don't do any fentanyl by accident. And have a lovely afternoon smoking something that doesn't have fentanyl in. Thank you very much. Goodbye.